Production underwriting for Ruckus has been made possible in part by the generous contributions from Fred and Lou Hartwig and from viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, where we fight tooth and nail and sometimes tongue-in-cheek over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon, joined by the Ruckettes, political consultant Steve Glorioso, Urban League president and CEO Gwen Grant, media and communications consultant Mary O'Halloran, and Crosby Kemper, CEO of the Kansas City Library System and host of KCPT's Meet the Past. Kansas City Star columnist Steve Rose is prescribing patience for Missourians worried about their economic border war with Kansas. Both states have passed sizable tax cuts designed to attract business, but Missouri Governor Nixon vetoed his state's legislation. Kansas Governor Brownback, meantime, is doing battle with some fellow conservatives over delaying a promised sales tax cutback. Rose summarized the state of the state this way: Kansas is destined to buckle under from both the ongoing tax-cutting fanaticism of Brownback and the ongoing budget-cutting fanaticism of the ultra-conservative bloc. This is a border war that Missouri is destined to win if it just will be patient while the Kansas experiment falls on its face. That's from Steve Rose. Is it prudent for Missourians to be patient, for the state to be patient about this, Crosby?
Well, the tax regimes in both Missouri and Kansas are idiotic. The economic development programs in both states, and it's not a Republican and Democratic issue, as Steve tries to indicate, or tax cut fanatics. Kansas has high taxes, and Governor Brownback wants to cut them to be competitive, and he's cutting them universally, as opposed to the state of Missouri's economic development program, which is all about subsidizing individual companies. But both states are doing it. The governor in Missouri subsidizes Mamtech, a non-existent Chinese company. We lose $40 million. Governor Brownback subsidized AMC moving across the state line, and they at least are an existing Chinese company. They're now owned by the Chinese, but their headquarters is going to be moving to California. Our tax policies are really dumb. We're the poster child for bad tax policies in the country. The one good thing that's happened is Governor Brownback trying to cut taxes for all small businesses. And we'll have an experiment now in which we'll see 40,000 businesses on the state line that will benefit by moving to Kansas.
Does Rose's thesis fall apart if Governor Nixon's veto is overridden by the state legislature?
Conceivably, I don't know what the politics of that are. They're obviously going to try to override it.
They have the number of Republicans. Not sure if they have all the votes.
Not all Republicans will vote for it, probably. So we'll see. I mean, conceivably, and the tax regimes will still be substantially different. But Governor Brownback wants to make the metro area a tax haven, which would benefit us. For the first time in 40 years, we might actually have economic growth.
And one more thing, Crosby, before we move on. There seems to be unending criticism of Brownback from the Kansas City Star and other publications and individuals, commentators. But isn't it too early to make a judgment about whether his economic program has succeeded or has failed?
Well, the Star has indicated a false choice about high taxes and education. They assume that we'll have huge cutbacks in education at the state level, and that will destroy education in Kansas or in Missouri if it was on the other side. The truth is, if we just got rid of the tax credits on both sides, we could pay for the tax cuts and maintain education spending at exactly the same level.
Couldn't agree with you more, but that's not what the governor that you just praised has done, Crosby. I mean, the question about tax policy, Mike, is who gets helped and who gets hurt, who gets their taxes cut and who gets their taxes raised. This governor reached into the state's treasury and gave away billions of dollars in income tax cuts. And in order to make it up, in order to avoid just draconian tax cuts, and by the way, the cuts that he has made are bordering on draconian. Well, he's had to raise sales taxes on people, on working class people. He has taken away tax credits that lower income people
But Mary,
have.
he didn't raise the sales tax.
He did indeed raise the sales tax.
Has been cut back from what it was, but not cut back entirely, not the 1%.
Well, let me finish the sentence from my perspective. If it's scheduled to be 5.7% and it ends up being 6.1%. That is a $200 million tax increase by his own admission and by his own
But it's not a new tax. The tax is now in existence. It is the
But
same. It was supposed to expire.
increase.
It was supposed to go down by 1%. It's going down by less than 1%.
yes,
So, Mary, are you in favor of cutting sales taxes? Because Kansas City's got about the highest sales tax
I am in favor of cutting sales taxes on food. And your Republican counterparts in Leawood, Melcher stood up and said, my gosh, we can't cut the sales tax in Kansas on food. People will get fat. People will eat.
All right, we got to move on here.
I live in Missouri, and I have been for about 2 years now just smiling because I think Kansas will implode. They did, by the way, there was a pretty massive tax increase by Brownback announced today, not by him directly. They're raising tuition in all the universities in Kansas.
Well, that's not a tax increase per se.
Let me tell you, conservative.
Well, they're raising them in Missouri as well.
Well, yeah, but the fact of the matter is that's just the beginning of what's going to happen. And who gets hurt?
But we don't know that.
If
there's economic growth,
poor people suffer while you experiment with the system. To talk about
their income taxes are being cut too.
People with the greatest needs suffer when you make these cuts.
Missouri did that. I mean, there's not even an attempt at fairness by the Republican Party. Of course, that's here, Missouri, Kansas, and of course up in Washington. There's not even an attempt. It's just pile on the middle class, pile on the lower class, all to the benefit of the Koch brothers and God knows who else.
Taxes, Steve, are in the city. The city where you were the chief of staff. We have very, very high sales tax. Earnings tax from $1, which is regressive. Kansas City has one of the most regressive tax systems, much more regressive than the state of Kansas or the state of Missouri. The city of Kansas City is the really regressive.
Got to move on. In one of his recent columns, Ruckus panelist Yael Abahaka suggests that residents were not told the full truth about the cost of the Power and Light Entertainment District in downtown Kansas City.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Well, let's find out. The column says the entire debt for the P&L district was projected at just under $490 million. New revenues in the form of taxes would be $506 million. The city's debt would vanish in 25 years, and taxpayers would get the remaining $16 million. Now, as Crosby mentioned, Steve, you were active at City Hall back during the time the planning took place for the Power and Light District. Yeah. Were truthful numbers presented to the public one of the key goals?
Well, first of all, I'm no Yael Abahaka. I have a jacket.
Well, you can say that again.
I have a jacket on. No, I think what Yael was stretching it a bit. The projections have not worked out. Whether the projections, I mean, to say his implication is that somehow the misleading numbers were given out. But let me say one thing, and he glancingly references, okay? And that is the fact that the city put about $140 million worth of improvements, which had to be done in downtown for anything to go on. When the Power and Light, when they started digging up the sewers, they found sewers made out of wood from the Civil War era. Well, they finally got rid of the last wooden drain sewers down at the city market about a year and a half ago. I mean, there was a lot of infrastructure that had to be done. And in that, there was a partnership with the Cordish Foundation that the Cordish people put in, I think, couple $100 million. And yes, the projections didn't work out. We didn't anticipate Bush's Great Recession. Who could have anticipated that?
Of course, it was George Bush's fault that the Power and Light District hasn't pulled in enough.
No, but it is a matter of
it's a $14 million. It's about a $14 million payment from the city each year.
Yeah, and Steve, you know, we agree on a lot of things, but you're sugarcoating this issue a little bit, and I think it's really important to point out that, yes, we thought that this development would yield greater benefits, greater tax benefits, and it has not. And the city has had to subsidize it to the harm of basic services each time when we look at the budget. So now, did it have another benefit for the city? Yes, it did. I mean, obviously, you know, the mayor, and Kay was my friend as mayor, wanted this to happen, and we supported that because we thought it was good for downtown revitalization, and we're seeing growth in that. But here's my point: it would be great if we could make those same types of decisions in the inner city. So we made this investment to revitalize downtown, and it isn't reaping the financial reward, but there are other rewards for that. Let's have the same thing in the inner city.
Crosby, you're based downtown at the library. Do you spend much time at the Power and Light District?
Yeah, I do. I walk through it every day on my way home.
My question is, why has it not been more successful?
Well, it's actually been about as successful as they expected it to be in terms of the number of people who are going there. So that's the big surprise, and that does tell you that the city finance didn't do their numbers right. So I think that's true. That's obvious. But there's a larger problem here, which is Kansas City's economic development policy is all about real estate subsidy. We do it more than any other city in the United States. Kevin Collison wrote about this on Sunday. I've been telling him this for 4 years. He didn't credit me in his article, but 16,000, we're down 16,000 jobs. After all this subsidy, this gigantic ongoing subsidy, we're down 16,000 jobs in the core, and we have a 27% vacancy rate, and we have buildings that are bankrupt downtown. It's been a terrible economic development policy.
Mary, the larger point, I think, of Yale's column was the city should be cautious about underwriting major projects, and I assume he's referring to the 1,000-room hotel.
Cities should be really cautious, and that's not to say that Kay wasn't cautious. I think the point now is looking at it. You look at what was there before Kay brought about single-handedly with great political and personal skill the renaissance of our downtown. There was a haunted house or two, seriously. We were doing haunted houses. Now we have the Sprint Center, which is a phenomenal success, and this thing, which isn't so much of a success. And it's going to require great subsidy, but the city got sewers, the city got a parking garage, the city got, what else? Sewers, parking garages, and something else.
A lot of them used for the Power and Light District.
That's true.
Kansas State Board of Education coolly avoided a heated battle over climate change, including it in a new package of science standards to be taught on state campuses. On the 8-2 vote, board members also ratified the continuing inclusion of evolution as part of the curriculum. Although there is dissent, it seems less rancorous than in past years when the evolution battle, rightly or wrongly, made Kansas the butt of many jokes in the national media. But Mary, there is still significant debate between the board and some legislators over the board's adoption of the Common Core guidelines. So what is Common Core and why would it be controversial?
Common Core is terrific. It's a set of standards for mathematics and for English language arts for children across the country. And some 45 states have adopted these.
And for science?
Not science, actually.
Well, it's
what
this is, that's the evolution.
But the Common Core is math and English, and the science standards were developed separately.
But I don't think that, well, they may be, they're all part of the same deal.
Let me just finish describing it.
Well, let's just make sure we got the basic facts here.
No, the science standards were developed separately.
But are part of Common Core.
No, actually, technically they're not. But let me just describe something to you. The governors of the 50 states got together and said, let's develop math and science standards that bring about greater clarity and focus on the kind of education that children K through 12 will need to compete globally. It is state-based. It wasn't developed by the federal government, contrary to what Brownback and his pals used to fight this thing. The reason that I mentioned the difference between the two is that the science standards were developed in a different way.
Well, why are they controversial? Why is Common Core controversial? Why would anybody be opposed?
It's controversial because it's not coming out of the state legislature. It's not coming out of Kansas's Board of Education. It is a national effort of the National Governors Association, which is primarily the intellectual, the structural start of Common Core. And they are excellent. If you want to go on the Board of Education's website, you can see exactly what second graders or sophomores in high school will be asked to learn.
The idea is to make it universal, that people in California would be learning what people in Kansas are learning.
And raise the quality, Mike.
Right.
And the
Crosby,
science.
Is it a good idea, Crosby?
There are two reasons to oppose it. I support the idea of Common Core because we do need a universal standard where you can compare education in your school district to other school districts, et cetera. Problem with Common Core is, A, it's dumbing down standards. Kansas science standards are better today than the Common Core standards. Missouri's algebra standards are higher than the Common Core standards. So we're going to dumb those standards down. Okay, so that's number one. And number two, they've picked in the science standards, we're going to go to the other side politically again. They picked climate science and evolution as the two things that they were going to stress. Well, I think evolution is science and intelligent design is an 18th century logical theory. So I'm on the evolutionist side on evolution, but they picked two things that are guaranteed to be politicized, and I think that's a huge mistake.
Well, they're politicized because they need to be. I mean, the legislature is not clear off base here by getting engaged in this subject. It is their job.
And it's going to cost some money to adopt the Common Core guidelines. But part of the argument is from those in the state legislature about this is that the State Board of Education is making the decisions about what to do that will cost money, and that should be a legislative function.
It's the board.
Yeah,
well, in fact, some people say the State Board of Education in Kansas is the fourth branch of government in the state.
I look across the state line as an observer, of course, and I actually have to applaud the fact that this is the debate as opposed to what we did when the conservatives took over the board, and we actually had an argument over evolution and what Crosby said earlier about 18th century
that's a
thinking.
significant change, is it not?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's maybe it's not anything more than atmospheric, but at least. Oh, I guess that's progress in Kansas these days.
Oh, no, it's more than atmospheric. This is going to be the core, as Crosby mentioned, the core subject in the science classes. At the core will be the discussion, learning about climate change as well as evolution.
Except we just dumbed down the standards in both.
Well, that's not universally held judgment.
But, you know, we do need to have some common standards across the country with regard to education. Because now these kids are graduating and teachers are giving grades and they don't mean anything. They don't tell us what these students know, but there should be some common standard that, that says, you know, when these kids graduate, they have achieve these particular skills, and we don't have that. So this could be a step in the right direction, but dumbing down is not the right direction.
I think one of the fears, too, is regimentation and orientation of people to what they are to believe.
That's a good question, but guess what? The Common Core standards do not include any requirements that teachers teach a certain way. They have left their hands off the how.
Well, there are Republican governors who are very supportive of this, are there not?
Oh, indeed.
Yeah, okay. Another evolution could be in the offing as a charter review commission appointed by Mayor Sly James comes into existence. The commission will likely recommend changes that could go on the city ballot this November. Some observers think James wants a vote on moving Kansas City from the council manager form of government to the strong mayor model. That change would likely cast the mayor as the city's chief executive, who could hire and fire city managers and other top administrators as well. Would this type of a shift be desirable, Gwen?
Well, you know, there's probably a mixed bag about whether or not a strong mayor is desirable. Personally, I think a strong mayor system can be good for Kansas City in that when you look at other cities with a strong mayor form of government, you see the mayor, there's more accountability. The mayor can hire and fire the city manager and the department heads and get things done. And you can hold the mayor accountable for either getting the job done or not, and it's not diluted with having to work the political process of the council.
Look at Kansas City, Kansas.
With
the strong mayor, CEO,
yeah. So, but you know, but I think the other important thing that this commission has to look at is how the issue of redistricting and how the council members are elected. And when you look at, in the research that we've done looking across the country where you have a strong mayor, you have more of in-district, you have a more in-district representation on the council versus the system we have with 6 in-district and 6 at large. So, you know, I think it's important to take a look at both of these systems.
You're on this commission, Steve. You've met, what, once?
Yesterday.
Strong mayor going to be the outcome, at least that as a proposal?
Well, I wouldn't want to predict. I really wouldn't.
Aren't you in favor of it?
I am in favor. I'm not sure I would go. And I think when I've heard the mayor speak, he's pretty smart about this. I think what he wants is hire and fire the manager and let it not be a full COO and a CEO and hire and fire department heads, which would mean he'd be all day long running the government and having to hire as chief of the. So but that alone, and it's really another step. We already have right now, the mayor nominates a new manager and the council has to confirm more or less, but the mayor gets a vote on it. And if he wants to fire the manager, he needs 6 votes. If the council wants to fire the manager and the mayor doesn't agree, there has to be an extra supermajority. But it's enough of a change that voters could hold the mayor accountable. The mayor gets blamed or gets credit regardless.
I was going to say, and ask Crosby here, having done radio talk shows for a long, long time, I've interviewed every mayor from Wheeler to the present one. He'll probably be the last that I interview on radio. But every one of them, has made the same point. People blame me for things I can't control and praise me for things I had nothing to do with. The people of Kansas City, by and large, don't understand the city manager form.
Right. I've historically been in favor of a strong mayor form of government because of accountability. I think, however, I've changed my mind because the current mayor-council form of government and the lack of any civic engagement has let too much power occur in City Hall and without any accountability at all. So we have 300 people approving $200 million for the streetcar. The City Council and the mayor want to avoid a vote on spending $2 billion on the airport. We have projects like the Citadel that happen where the city loses $35 million and there's no accountability whatsoever. If we go right now to a strong mayor form of government, it would just simply continue no accountability at City Hall.
Well,
a charter change that would restrict the power of City Hall generally.
If somebody doesn't have the kind of responsibility that the public understands, that the mayor doesn't, they can't hold him accountable because essentially it's a mixed bag. There's accountability all over the place. The thing that I hope happens, I too have been a really strong supporter, Crosby, of strong mayor form of government since I arrived here and experienced the weak mayor form. But we should do this incrementally. It seems to me that the history of the city, we've had great mayors with one exception. And we shouldn't let that one exception of
Who do you
Funkhauser.
mean? You're not talking about Mark Funkhauser, are you?
I think there's a little residue left from his years in the office. But we have gradually increased the power of the mayor in Kansas City. I am concerned about this issue of sort of balkanizing and increasing the size of the city council. At a time when acting in a unified city is what's going to be required.
That's designed to get more minorities on the council, isn't it? I mean, that's the goal.
I'm Mary's concerned because I respect her intellect to understand the importance of representation and equality in that, equity in that. And so the issue of redistricting is about having the opportunity for individuals to select the representative of their choice. And the way we currently do it with the at-large districts minimizes, it dilutes the minority vote. Now, it also, and when you understand the Voting Rights Act, I think this applies to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Okay, so.
I know.
Well, but it applies across the board. And so if we redraw the lines to have either 9 in district and 3 at large, it increases the opportunity for representation from the Latino
We'll be talking about this in the weeks ahead, I'm sure. And now it's time for Roast and Toast, where we cheer or jeer, more through here, praise or pan people and events in the news. We start tonight with Steve Glorioso.
I thought last night I was having an out-of-body experience. I turned off the Royals game and was watching some news, and I'm going to roast the House Republicans. Within the matter of 24 hours, we saw a spectacle of ranting about immigration and saying it's going to bankrupt the nation. On the same day, the CBO, who's always been thought of as the referee on these things, said that if we granted citizenship, this would add billions of dollars to the budget in terms of revenue, decreasing the deficit. At the same time, I watched some Republican congressman say that a fetus in the womb at 15 weeks, if a male, could actually reach down and masturbate in the womb. And I just can't believe it. What is going through the mind of all of these men who want to tell women about their bodies?
Steve's final appearance on the program, Crosby.
I want to roast the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, which supports every tax subsidy program known to man, including the 2 top programs they supported in the legislature in Missouri this year, which fortunately the Republicans in the legislature deep-sixed, were a tax subsidy for data centers employing no people and all owned outside of Kansas City, and support for the Quality Jobs Act, which the state auditor called one of the worst programs he'd ever seen.
I'm going to roast Chief Justice Clarence Thomas and Chief Justice Samuel Alito for their dissenting opinions on the recent Supreme Court ruling with by overturning the Arizona law requiring immigrants to show ID. Which really opens the door for racial profiling when stopped by a police officer. This was a terrible law. I'm glad it was overturned. Their dissenting views just sets the stage for concern with future Supreme Court decisions around voting rights coming forward in the next few weeks.
Great roast. I also want to talk about immigration, but I want to talk about an individual person. I want to toast an 11-year-old Hispanic boy, an American from San Antonio, Texas, named Sebastian De La Cruz. He stood up and sang the national anthem in his mariachi uniform at the third game of the NBA in San Antonio. And it was so amazingly beautiful that it captured the nation's attention. However, there was also a flood of racist and ethnically disparaging comments on the internet and so on social media. The second night, he came back and the mayor introduced him and the country applauded him again. Google Sebastian De La Cruz. Your spirits will be lifted.
And that is Ruckus for this week. Thanks very much for joining us. The program airs again Sunday morning at 11:30 and at 6 p.m. Saturday evening on KCPT2. Now, on behalf of the Ruckettes and the Ruckus crew, Mike Shannon, thanks for watching and good night.